Hello, everybody. My name is Jim, and this is a spoiler-free review of Comfort Me with Apples by Catherynne M. Valente. This novella is super short, and while I'm not going to give everything away, I just really hope that I do this book justice with my review so that it at least convinces some of you to go out there and read it for yourselves. Before I even read it, I read it back in October of last year because I needed a horror pick, and I heard that it was horror, even though I could admit that it's not quite the horror that I think some people expect. I fully expected it to follow some similar themes to the Stepford Wives. If you watched that movie or you read the novel by Ira Levin, then you kind of already understand what the premise of this book is. And while I can say that there are some one-to-one comparisons with the Stepford Wives, I think that Comfort Me with Apples gives you a little bit more in the way of how it's themed and also how it's presented. But essentially, you do have that plot of the subservient wives. You have the main character, Sophia, who, from what I remember, it kind of seemed like she felt out of place, that she was living in this neighborhood but didn't really understand how she got there or why. She meets the different people in the neighborhood, and each of them kind of, in a way, were their own cry for help. So it was a very interesting book. It was creepy in a way that I don't think people expect. And for a short novella, I think it's only 103 pages, according to Goodreads. It might even be shorter because I think Goodreads sometimes includes acknowledgments and things like that. But really, I think Valente did a great job with the build-up of this novella. It was something that I was satisfied with. I gave this 5 stars. I felt it was very apropos, considering I just moved into a new house. In this story, every other chapter is written as though it is part of an HOA covenant. It is a set of rules that you must follow if you intend to live in the neighborhood peacefully and get along with your neighbors. For example, the very first rule that you see written in this novella is one that says you must maintain specific colors for the exterior of your house, and you can't deviate from those colors. And that, I feel, is a very common rule for an HOA. It's a way to keep things neat and to establish an appearance, a communal facade, I guess, if you will, for future prospective buyers. I get that. And as you read the novella, though, some of the rules are a little bit more ridiculous. And they're not as clear cut, they're not as realistic, and it adds to the creepy vibe of the story. And I just think that inclusion in the novella was so well done. And maybe it just hit me harder because I am a new homeowner. But some of these in this book are a little bit weird. And as the story progresses and as the plot builds, it's a pretty mellow plot, I guess, overall. But as you start figuring things out with Sophia, the main character, then a lot of things start to click. And that, I think, is what was so well done. And speaking of that aspect, I mentioned in the song tag, actually, the song tag video, when I talked about Christine, I mentioned a little bit about what makes things creepy to me. And I think this novella really sold the creepy factor. Because for me, it's not that in-your-face horror that freaks me out. It is the stuff that's perfect, but seems a little bit out of place and out of the ordinary. I like to call it daytime horror, where all of the lights are on, the sun is up, everything should be fine, but it's not. That's the type of horror that I like. That's what creeps me out and gives me the heebie-jeebies. I think that Valente added some extra horror elements to this novella to kind of sell that genre to people who maybe aren't too into the subtle, quote, daytime horror that I'm into. I didn't feel like those elements were necessary, but I also didn't really mind that they were there just because I know that people like to read horror in very different ways, and having those elements in there could have really turned someone on to the novella that maybe wouldn't have enjoyed it as much had those little elements, those in your face horror moments, not been there. And there was something that added, for me at least, to the creepy factor. It was a theme that I kind of picked up along the way. I really should have seen it coming. I should have known it from the moment I held the book in my hand that the theme was going to be what it ultimately was. I didn't pick up on it until I was reading more of the HOA Covenants. It was a theme that some people were turned off to after they read the novella, and I don't want to say what it is because it does play a huge role in the novella, and by that point I feel like I would spoil it for everybody. So if you want to read some of the reviews that aren't blocked behind spoilers, I do have a link to this novella in the description. Be sure to find the retailer of your choice so that you can purchase this book for yourself, or check it out from the local library if they have it. I'm not going to say anything else because I feel like I am going to spoil the novella if I mention another thing, just because it is, like I said, only 100 or so pages. So check it out yourself if it interests you. I personally enjoyed it. I gave it 5 stars. I don't know if I said that or not, but I did. And my star rating is in the description as always. But otherwise, I've been Jim. You've been great. Happy reading.